you had the attention of the entire world, what would you say?
Go to therapy.
There it is. All right, welcome to Inimitable Black Women, the podcast where we tell the stories of the storytellers. And I am super excited. Diamond Williamson is founder and CEO of Third and Wonder Production House, the go-to media and production company for Black women and Black culture, specializing in branded, documentary, and unscripted formats. She's created hundreds of videos for notable clientele like the Oprah Winfrey Network, Google, Warner Brothers, Essence, and more. The multi-hyphenated thrives in her ability to tell authentic, innovative, and quality visual stories. Diamond's mastery and passion is evident through her diverse professional experiences and the content she creates, like Webby Honoree competition series Biz Bestie Showdown, original documentary Best Friends Not Forever, which we'll talk about today, and the highly praised podcast Creative Women Wanted. Her continued goal is to build community and produce entertaining, empowering, and relatable art for Black women. Welcome, Diamond!
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
I'm super excited about you being here. So I got a screening. I got to see an early screening of Diamond's documentary. Let's get the name completely right. Best Friends Not Forever, which is like in itself a loaded title. Yeah. So, okay, I feel like it's only right to first say and to not say, but ask this question. What makes a good friend?
I think the definition of a good friend evolves throughout the years. Like, I think for me in my early 20s, it was about, just somebody who was there, who we could go out together, we could have fun together. We could talk about things. But I think as I've gotten older, it's somebody who is able to reciprocate at some point, like what it is that I'm able to offer as well. Somebody who doesn't judge me, somebody who's there, who can be comforting. But I think the biggest thing for me is like just somebody who doesn't judge. Like, I just need someone who is not judgmental at this point in my life.
So where did you grow up? What was like your childhood like?
I would say I grew up everywhere. Like, I am a military kid. I was born in Oklahoma, moved to California in 5th grade, moved to Georgia in 9th grade, moved to Kentucky my senior year, and I went to college in Georgia. So I feel like I was just all over the place, and I was raised an only child. So I think one of the things that influenced the way that I engaged with people was the fact that I was the only child that moved around different places. So it was a bit challenging, but I also felt like I found myself trying really hard to build community.
When for you, this is always a unique question because it's different for all of us, but like when for you did you realize I'm a Black woman? Or like I'm different from other people racially in experience or just visually how they're taking me?
I don't know that I really realized it until I got older. Like, I think I realized I was a Black person. And like, I feel like I had that realization before I was like, oh, I'm a Black woman. Like, I think the Trayvon thing for me was like, this is, yo, I think that was like a really big wake up call for me. I mean, I've always knew I was Black, but like I didn't really feel othered or realize I was othered until Trayvon.
Honestly, what you just said, this is the first answer that lines up with exactly my experience of my Blackness. Like I've always known I was Black, and I grew up in environments where like I was around white people where I knew I wasn't them and I knew that it was different. Like the othering or like even the disregard, like I didn't realize that until Mike Brown. That's when I started like hearing people's thoughts about Black people and like how they view them, and just like hearing their evil words or mean words towards Black people. That was the first time that I felt uncomfortable being in spaces around white people, because in my mind I then start to be like, these people look at me in a way that's like threatening to my life or just like disregard for it. Yeah.
Yep.
That's that you're the first person that said like that's kind of like lines up with for me too. It was like I never really realized until that happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Trayvon was really, because we watched the verdict. That was like, for me, I was like, oh, okay, got it. Like that took me by surprise.
Yeah. So as a creative, for you, what, like, how did you get started in the work as a creative? And then combined with that, like, what would you say has been the, like, the business decisions, the creative decisions you've made that has gotten you to the place that you're at today?
I would say that I've always been a creative. I've always been artistic. I've always been an artist. Like I remember I had this memory just today. I was thinking about like, you know, um, like I always remember that I went to art camp and that I would paint and I would make my grandma paper mache animals. Like, well, I made a paper mache animal and my cousin was afraid of it. Like, but I used to paint things for my grandparents and paint things for my mother. And I remember going to art camp with my cousin and we were doing a musical. There was all these things, but I had this memory that of myself. I used to go to my cousin owned a day. One of my cousins owned a daycare, and I would take my I was like 8 because she was like my older cousin. I would take my drawing book and I would draw these different types of women and these different clothing. Like on each page would be a different drawing. So it's like I've always been, and I would use crayon. It was so fun, but I've always been creative and I've always been an artist. But I think once I got to college, I kind of lost that. It was about school, it was about grades, it was about keeping the scholarship. But later on in college, I was reading a lot of magazines and I was like, oh, I want to do photography. So I got into photography. I found some clients that, some bloggers that needed their photos done, started taking their photos. And once they decided they wanted to do video, I was their natural choice because I was their photographer. So I started directing their videos. And that's when I really discovered a love for it. And that was in 2012. And then I did my first YouTube video the following year. And it's just been up from then. I just like let my love of creating videos evolve. And at first it was about creating videos, and now it's about creating series and documentary series and telling stories and what types of stories I can tell. And because I was doing it independently, people started to come to me for me to do it for them more often. And so that's when I started my business in 2015. I started with a business partner. It didn't kind of work out for us, but then I ended up starting it again in 2016, or keep it going in 2016. And so been running it ever since.
You feel like your creative journey has been you following the creative and then the business has come? Or do you feel like you made certain choices business wise, or like you reached out or you did this and that's how it kind of started?
Well, I think I feel like at first it was about me following the creative. And then once I had my first kind of corporate job, I worked as a publicist. I was like, oh, like I don't want to do this. I want to make a life out of something I love. So I started to charge for my work. And then I started my business. But I was also a freelancer in television. So I was doing all these different gigs, but because I wanted to do it how I wanted to do it, I ended up starting my business. And I had already started like 2 businesses before. So this is my third or fourth business. So I wasn't afraid to do that. It was just like how it came about was definitely inspired by my desire to be creatively free, I would say.
You said that you worked in publicity, you did a corporate job in publicity, but you were doing freelance television. What was like the freelance television stuff you would do?
That came a little later. It was like I was like I quit. Well, I got fired from being a publicist because I was doing healthcare publicity. I don't care about that. I'm like 20.
That makes sense
Yes, like
though.
Medicare had public relations. So like I was fired from that. I wasn't aligned with that. So I was doing some creative things on the side, putting my coins together, living off of unemployment. I got another job, got fired from that job because again, it wasn't aligned. But then that's when I got into television. That's when I became a freelance television producer, and I was working on the Chrisley Knows Best at first, and then different reality shows. And because I didn't want to work in reality no anymore, I got a job working at Iyanla Fix My Life. And working at Iyanla is what really inspired. Between working at Iyanla and watching Super Soul Sunday, I was really inspired by like, hey, I want to create things for Black women that feel spiritual, that feel freeing, that teach them something, that evolve them in some way, the way that I feel when I watch Oprah, anything Oprah does or what Iyanla's doing.
I agree. I'm also a baby of Oprah. I feel very inspired by like
Yeah.
I feel like she, so I worked at OWN. I worked at OWN during the launch. time. So
Oh,
like
nice.
between before it was launched and then when it got launched. And like there's just something about her heart and her content to like inspire you to be fully you and to like excel in that. Like that's
Yeah.
and to see a Black woman do it is
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And I think the thing that Super Soul Sunday has helped me do was also like discover what it means to be fully me and like to go on that journey. Cause I don't even I'm like, me? What? I am me, but not knowing that there's something deeper. Like Super Soul Sunday really opened that up for me. And I knew that I wanted to do that same thing through my work. And that's been my inspiration for my own creativity.
so I want to be nosy. So when it came to finally getting into television, how did you make that leap from PR to television? Was it connections you had already made, or like how did you get into that? Into well, first into the reality and from the reality into like more content that is more your speed of like substantial long-term effects to people's lives.
There's not a direct connection, right? Like I was fired from that job. I started to create, I was living off of unemployment. I'm like 23. I was creating my own video still, creating for other people. I was like focused on making my visions come to life while I'm on unemployment and trying to find a job. And I got because I was still taking photos with this blogger at some point, and I had met somebody that worked in reality at that while I was working with her. And so I stayed in touch with this one person who worked in reality television. And when I told her, hey, like I'm ready, I want to get into this, when a job became available, she positioned me for it and took the job. And I did reality for a few years, but because I was still making my own content, like I was able to easily be like, oh, this is not what I want to do. Like I want to just keep making content my way. And I had met somebody who, while I was in my reality journey, I met somebody who ended up taking over Eon La Fix My Life. And he then hired me when it was his option. And that from there, my life really, really changed in terms of like how I want to do the work that I want to do.
That's beautiful. So when it comes to your film, which honestly, after watching your piece, I felt so inspired because like I definitely feel like this documentary made a space that was very nuanced, very truthful, and very just like beautiful to like Black female friendships and like the ups and downs of it. And I haven't seen a lot of material, I feel, that really explores that in the documentary space. To me, I haven't seen it. So I think what I love about like just even reading like your overall vision and like the what you're saying you want to do at your work is that it inspires me because I want to do that too, to create those spaces for Black women and to tell those stories. And so to see your documentary, I was like, and as a creative, I know you know that feeling like when you see something and it inspires
Yeah.
you and you're just like, oh my God,
It
yes.
feels so good. It's like I need to immediately take action. I need to immediately write something down. Yes, it's a beautiful feeling. And so to know my work could do that
Oh,
for makes you feel inspired is like it warms my heart because that's how I want to make people feel.
oh my gosh. That's what I was like, I was like, can I interview? Can I talk to you about this? Like, I just wanna get into because it was just it really was like that's no I'm not exaggerating a lot. Like I felt inspired after watching your piece. And so like I would ask you why this documentary and how did it start?
It's a personal experience. Like it just simply is a personal experience. Like I've had multiple friendship breakups, but the last one I felt so I feel like I didn't have support because I had just moved from Atlanta to LA. And once I got to LA, I just saw some things that weren't going to work for me anymore. It's kind of like now I can see from a bird's eye view how this person really was. And we had been friends for 14 years. So it's not like I didn't know this person. So I ended the friendship and it was such a hard time for me to like be in LA, to have broken up with a friend that's a part of a friend group. So now my friendship with other people starts to feel a little fractured because people, it's like the people were closer to her. I'm the one that's moved away. And so I feel like the more that I talked about it in general with people and how I was feeling and what I was going through, the more that I realized people were going through this too, and they wanted to talk about it. And as a documentarian, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. And so it really came from like having conversations with some of my filmmaking friends or people in general. And I'm like, oh yeah, I got to do this. And I talked about it in therapy too. But the more I talked to anybody about it, the better I felt. And I wanted to just go on that journey. I wanted to know what therapists thought. I wanted to know what a friendship expert thought. Like, I wanted to really bring to life this feeling that I was having, this healing that I was doing.
Mm. One of like my favorite moments from the documentary is when who let me see. Okay, when Shayla is talking about her experience in her friendships, and one of the fellow participants goes, "Hey, I just want to take a moment to like speak to your pain and speak to like what you just shared with us, and to like basically just like solidify like I hear you. I want to confirm you in those feelings and stuff." And I thought that was such like a beautiful gold moment. And so I would love to hear what you thought about that moment. And also like what other moments from your piece that really stuck with you, whether it made it on the cut or didn't.
That part always makes me tear up, and it still makes me tear up because Shayla's story in general makes me tear up. Everybody, it just makes me tear up. But including that moment, in the moment that it happened, we were all like, yeah, yeah, like thank you, you know. But like to watch it back is like, oh man, wow. Like it's so beautiful. It really touches me. And even when I think about it, it touches me. And I think, what really the other moments that like inspire me or make me just emotional is just honestly like every single interview is like Black women being vulnerable about something that is so intimate to them. And it's like the fact that we get to do this and there's like all Black camera women there to support them and Black producers and Black everything. It's like Black gaffers, everything. It's like, man, and I will say this, there was somebody that was actually on the team that worked behind the scenes that after we had that group conversation, she went and had to have her own moment because she was going through it herself. And it was just like, this shit is deep. Sorry for cussing.
Oh, no,
This
people cuss
is,
on it all the time.
yes, but like,
Okay.
it just reminded me that this was about so many more women than the women that just sit here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's powerful. It's a very friendship, Black female friendship is a very universal thing for us and our experiences. And I think even just like, I think, Black womanhood brings so much with it. And I think that us developing those friendships with other Black women, um, there's just like a deep bonding that happens that I know happens in all friendships. Like the topic, first of all, what you speak about friendships, it's so universal in general. And I think the stories that these women are telling are things that anyone can connect with. But I think there's such a deepness in how we connect to each other as Black women because of the added layer of what we deal with being Black women. Um,
Yes.
and we can relate
Yeah.
to each other on that in a very deep way because it's very painful the things that we deal with as Black women just existing in our own skin. So I think that's what makes our friendships even deeper and why we go so deep.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Right. And I think that's what also makes them hurt a lot. Right. Is like, dang, like, especially I think like the friendship that occurs over a period of a decade, the way you see each other so differently, like from being 18 to 22 to 25 to having kids to turning 30 to experiencing someone's Saturn return multiple times. It's just like it makes it hurt really bad. But when we don't have the tools to communicate and we don't have the tools to like help ourselves through it, or when we don't even know that it's something serious enough that we could get help for, it makes it really difficult. And that's why like in our trailer, when we released the documentary trailer, at the end of it says, may this documentary validate your experience, because I think it's something that can feel so passive that we just have to like, oh yeah, I broke up with my friend yesterday, let me go to work, let me do my work, let me take care of my dogs, let me take care of my family. And we don't grieve what has happened to us.
what I thought was really beautiful, and you just touched on it, is the grief part of it. Like it is very much so grieving a death in a way. Um, I think grief, obviously the most evident example of grief is death, but I think that experience of death happens in other things, like a friendship death. It's like you have to grieve it. You have to I had a really bad friend breakup who I would consider one of my best friends. And it took me so long to like get through it, like to the point where for her, I know her aunts, they're like my mentors, and one of them was talking about her, and I just had to be like, don't you tell me one more good thing happening with her. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
I
I've
don't
had to say that to my friends, like, hey, I don't want to talk about her. Why do you talk to me about her?
like
But I had to tell them they
yeah. It's like, and it's no, it's just real. It's like I'm to hear this person, it's like to hear this person is living life. And I'm sorry if this sounds awful. I'm different, but at the time it was like to hear this person's living life and to hear this person's living life well without me in it. Not that I like made it well, but it's just like, and I'm suffering, or I'm living life, but I dealing with that pain still. And like you're living life and like you don't have that pain. Or that's what I'm projecting, right? Off of someone
oh
telling me
that
things. Yeah. So
I'm so it hit that hits me that resonates with me a lot. Because even like I know in my friendship group, like nobody asked me how I was doing about it because and I don't know if it's because I was the one that did it, but nobody asked me. It's like, and one of my friends was like, "Did you want us to?" And it's like, yes. It's a part of my life. It's something that happened to me, and it's like it felt like because they didn't ask, they didn't see me. They didn't see what I was going through and what I was experiencing, and so it was just, girl, girl, I'm still experiencing it because what has happened within a group setting is that like there I've realized that, oh, it's not just her. It's some of the group. Like it wasn't just her. She's not an isolate. It was the group, and it's like it's not just one friendship breakup, it's now two. So that's
yeah.
just I'm glad I have my own documentary to help me through it.
But I'm glad you have your own documentary to help people through it because I felt so seen. I felt very
uh,
seen. I felt very heard. And it's such a isolating, it can feel very isolating, but in reality, it's something that many people can relate to, many people are going through. And I think going back to that moment I mentioned earlier with Shayla, I think that's what made it so powerful, is because when you're telling your story, um, you can tell it and feel like people aren't taking it in, right? And you're in it, and it's so like, right, like emotionally it's just hot, it's a lot. And so when she did that and said, pause, I want to talk to your pain and like sit with you in that I think that's why it was so powerful, because it brought that need that I don't think we often get when we're expressing the pain of like these experiences.
just yes, exactly, having people that in your life that have capacity for how you feel. Mecca showed up in that moment as that's very true. It's so beautiful. Like that was like a very important moment for us to keep, for sure.
What was something that surprised you about the storytelling process in this documentary?
How much I learned about what I did wrong, like what I could have done better, which was like I did not, I was not. What I realized is that I should have ended the friendship a long time ago. But what I also realized is that I never said anything. I accepted everything this person did as who this person was. And I would go and talk about it with my partner. Like we would talk, I'd be like, oh my God, she did this. I can't believe it. And I would move on and I would just accept it. But I realized that I wasn't facing her and I wasn't telling her how I felt along the way in a way that was like, just like, yo, matter of fact, this is how I feel. And I feel like had I done that earlier, the friendship would have ended earlier because when I finally did tell her how I felt, the friendship ended because she was like, I understand. And she didn't do anything different after that. So I
Yeah,
realized what I did wrong, what I could have done better for sure.
I think that's all, that's a very like that's Chef's kiss. That's very deep because that's real. I think for me, I was so angry at like what my friend did and what happened. I carried that anger probably for like a year, maybe more. And then when I started like when it first happened, I reflected on these things, but it wasn't, I probably didn't really digest those things and until like a year later, to being like, how can I, to the point where I could see me, the things that I did wrong in that friendship and other friendships. And for me,
Mm,
my problem was I meant well, but I was too heavy handed. Like I felt like it was my responsibility to fix my friend, to change my friend. This is not to say
mm,
she didn't do anything, but it's like I think that my heavy handedness and thinking that I could fix or change or make her back or fix her, whatever, that wasn't my responsibility. And the way that I was going about it was isolating her, instead of just accepting that this is where she was and this is who she was. And so if I want to carry the friendship, just make space for that or move on.
that's beautiful. That's a
Yeah,
beautiful revelation. That's
yeah.
a beautiful revelation.
Because I wanted to kill her for a long time. A long time after the friendship, I was like spitting fire. Because and rightfully so, I felt that I really wished my friend could have given me grace um in some areas. And I was, but sometimes you can't ask people to give you what they don't have.
What they don't give themselves.
Hello?
Mhm.
That's really it, right? Like, how can I expect you to give me something that you don't have for yourself?
And that's definitely what showed up in my friendship. It's like if my because I knew that my friend she didn't deal with the conflict in her own life. She was very avoidant. So it's like when it came to my own feelings, of course she didn't care about those. She didn't care about her own. And when it came to like her like the deep things in her life.
Yeah.
And like that's cool, but like I want to be in friendships that feel like if you can, like we're rooted, we're grounded. Like if something happens, like we can handle each other's challenges, we can handle each other's problems that we might have with each other. Because if not, then what is this? This is very much a one-sided friendship.
Yeah.
So
I think like the ultimate growth is like I can look back on that person and that friendship and be like, here's my part, here was your part, and we don't align anymore in that. But that doesn't mean that like, go ahead, say
there's
what.
anything wrong. I was just gonna say exactly like I've been using this like term, like you complete the first grade, you complete the eighth grade, you complete high school. It's like this friendship is completed. It's done. And it's like nothing wrong. She is her, I am me, but we are completed. Check box. And nothing else to see here.
Right. And that's not a bad thing. It
No, there's no judgment on it. There's no judgment on it. It just is.
just is. And I think living in the it just is, that we're not aligned like that anymore, is really powerful, because I do feel, and this doesn't always happen, right? Like people's friendships break up for different reasons, right? Where like it's some deep things that it's just I'm never gonna look at you the same way, right? But I think and if when we can, being able to be like, me and you just don't align, but you're not my enemy, you're not, I'm not going to demonize you. It's just we're not anymore. And that's okay. I think that's yeah,
That's it. That's literally it.
I think it's a big deal. So I thought your piece was just really beautiful because I felt like there was a lot of different aspects of friendship that was explored. Like it wasn't just like one way of like, it was friendships that broke up and repaired, friendships that didn't, friendships, like it was just like the many different stages within and the complications of it, which I think is a very hard thing to do, to explore all these different things, right? Because then like as a filmmaker, it's like, okay, we're going in like 50 directions.
Yeah. And that I just want to say that's one of the things that I love most about my skill set is that I do feel really tapped into when a story flows. Like I take much pride in like why like I've seen the documentary so many times and it's like before it was like complete, it was like, oh, I there was it was a feeling, like it was a feeling of like, oh, this flows. And then it would be, if something felt off, it was like, oh, this is disruptive, like, oh, it's like we gotta adjust this. But I think because there are many ways we can go, but I do think the story tells itself, because the story I wanted to tell, that I wrote, was as much different than what has come about in terms of how it flows. And I think that is like, I think the idea of repairing a friendship didn't come until like maybe 3 weeks before we filmed. Like having that conversation didn't come before till 3 weeks before we filmed. But I think that's like why it's just important to like just get in the process of it, because the story will tell itself eventually.
So, two questions I want to ask you about behind the scenes. One, you talked about your crew. You talked about like, Black female producers, people working not just like the positions of director, producer, cinema. Was your cinematographer Black?
I have 3 Black women camera operators, a Black woman DP,
Wow.
yep, a Black woman that was behind the scenes, of course, like Black women producers, Black woman makeup artist. We only had 3 men on set, 4 men on set
Mhm.
for that entire production.
How did you build your team? Because I feel like as a creative, we want, especially as a creative, as a Black woman, when you're in a position where you can hire other Black women and bring them, it's like, how did you find that? Because I think sometimes I've talked to people who struggle to find, other, not that we're not there, but like the building of the team, because we're all around.
I have a production company, so it's like I do this. So I have people that I have to find people. I do believe in my instance, when the intention is to find a Black woman, I do.
Mhm.
Like if the intention is to find a Black woman who it can be my DP, either I find her or she finds me, because this is my work, this is my job. We kind of tend to be attracted to each other, right? Like they might find out about me, I might find out about them, but I feel like because the intention is there, I end up finding what I need. And if it's not a Black woman, I always find what I need. And I think that comes with like being experienced in production. You trust that you will find what you need, whether it's I have to reach out to Facebook groups, reach out to people I know and have worked with, reach out to email lists that I have. If the intention is there, it'll come.
Another thing is like, obviously, we need money to make these things. So financially, what has been your journey of getting this piece made?
So because I mean, I use my own money and we invest some of our profit into doing this, because we know that it positions us better for our business. Like these are the type of stories we want to tell. These are the type of stories we want to be paid to tell. And so we use this as it's a work, it's art. It's also a marketing tool for the type of things that we want to do. And that's been my mission this year, is like, how do I position Third and Wonder as a company that is storytelling, like truly deep storytelling, and not just for a company because they want to market their business, but because, hey, we want to share our story as a nonprofit, or hey, at HBO Max, this is a story we've been developing and we want your company to tell it. Like it really is about telling the story, but positioning us as well.
It's a proof of concept and of ability.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a proof of ability, because that's what I wanted to show here. And I invested in it to make it happen.
I love it.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
let me see. Oh, this is what would you say has been the hardest part of the process?
I think when I think about like what was hard, was that for many, many productions I had worked with, my partner was working with us, and then this was like the first production that she hadn't worked on in a while. And it is nice to have somebody on set that knows you as a director, because she was my producer and knows me as a director, but also just knows me. It's like she was very comforting for me. So I was like very out of my comfort zone, like having to do this without the producer that I had been working with for a very long time. So I feel like that was challenging. I think there were other challenging things in general. I mean, I was nervous, I had anxiety, like I'm like, is this going to make sense? Post-production was really hard, because we had a lot, and we didn't have a lot of B-roll at first, but we have a great editor. She really, like, she's a good storyteller, so she had some feelings, and she like put her feelings into the piece as well.
Ooh, that's beautiful. That also speaks to the benefit of having Black women in these positions like editor and things of that nature, because like they can look at your material and infuse that in, where someone who doesn't know that experience specifically for Black women doesn't bring that. Yeah.
Exactly. And I want to say this just came up when I think about team. I think so much of the creative process is spiritual, right? So not just the story that is spiritual, and you got to follow your spirit and follow your feelings, but also your feelings about people that you may hire. So it's like I talk to everybody before they come on set, and if there's a feeling about them, if there's a vibe about them, if I get the feeling that they're only doing this for money, then we can't work together because this is serious. Like you can't just show up here and do a job. You have to care. And like there's ways that you show that you care. Did you read the email that I sent? Did you read the material? Are you showing up to calls on time? Especially when you're a new person. A lot of the people that I've worked with for years. So, we have a good relationship. We communicate very well. We know we have fun on set, but we work really hard. But when it comes to new people that I might have to hire, you got to do a vibe check.
Mm-hmm. I think you make a really good point. You show the biggest thing we want is that you care. And like specifically, like, are you doing the things like the bare minimum things, right? The bare minimum is read the call sheet. Bare minimum is read the email, the thing that I sent you. Not just
That's
like,
it. Hey,
yeah.
yeah.
It's like,
Sorry.
if anything, one, that's professional.
Yes.
And two, that is what I'm paying you for, because it is a business. And that's the most unfortunate part, is when people show up unprepared, because especially with production, there's so much time is money in production. Like if you have to extend a shoot, that's so much more money that you have to invest in it. And especially as independent filmmakers or filmmakers doing it from your own money, like that's a huge sacrifice. So it's like to know that the people around you are caring about the work they do and how they show up is very important.
When it comes to my work and when it comes to Black women, I don't play around. Like you gotta care and you gotta act like you care. And if you're late to set, let's talk about it. Because why are you late? Because it's like you are showing me that feels like you don't care unless you have a really good reason. You know what I mean? It's like show up your best, be excellent. I don't play about what I do. Like there's a very there's a Black women need tenderness and care in every point of what we do, especially when they're sharing their story. And it's like when you're late and you're moving my time back and you're moving their time back, it's like it upsets me. But at the end of the day, it's like really just about caring about what you do. And then because we do unscripted, it's like caring about our subjects.
Mhm. Okay, so what is something you feel other creatives can learn from you?
Ah, that's so crazy to say. I don't know. Like I just feel like doing is so important. Like I think getting out of our head and doing and starting the process and like just really bringing our visions to life is important. And I really want to remind creatives that do this for work that we are artists first. Like we are artists first. We are not machines. We are artists first. And whatever we need to do to make sure that the art gets made, whether it's like taking ourselves on a walk, giving ourselves breaks, making sure we're getting enough rest, like whatever we need to do to take care of ourselves as humans is like really important. Like we're not just here to serve like companies. Like we're here to make art. And I just want to remind people of that. Like we're artists first. Like everything we do does not have to be for consumption. Some stuff can just be for us, right? Like, I don't know, just really tapping into the fact that we're artists is like really important because it takes away the fact that we need people to like our stuff or share our stuff. It's just like, I'm doing this because like I was called to do it. Like that's just number one. Number two, I'm doing this because I was called to do it. Period.
When you first started out, um, what do you feel like benefited you the most at that present time that you were doing that just got the train tracks and got the train going?
I committed to doing. Like my first YouTube video is on YouTube. Like it's crazy. It's 10 years ago. I look crazy. I'm talking all frail but I did it. And I think I'm just really glad that I started when I did and that I committed to keep going because it got me here like 100%. It gave me the courage that I needed, and it helped me to believe in myself.
That's so good. So what I want to leave with a couple of things is, what is recommendations potentially that you would give for other like creatives to check out? Book wise, podcast wise, video wise, movie, whatever. Something that you're like, I saw this and it either inspired me and informed me. I just think as a creative, you should check this out. What would it be?
The thing that comes to mind to me is something that I experienced, which is therapy. Not everybody is into it, but I think what's really important, whether it's therapy, whether it's learning about our astrology, learning about our human design, I think the more that we know about ourselves as humans, the more aligned we will be with our art. Because then like if I know who I am, if I know what I like and what I love and what I want to do, and I learn those things in therapy and in astrology, then I will make better decisions for my art, because it won't be about what anybody else thinks. It'll be because I know who I am. And I think it's just really important as artists, we know who we are. But I think I have a book, I have a book that I read that was very helpful to me. It's called Shipping Creative Works. It really pours into the fact that we are creatives first, and it takes away all of the judgment out of it, all the stipulations, all the analytics, all the strategy. Is just like, you are creative. And I think that like Shipping Creative Work, the Creative Act, and The Artist's Way are books that are really important to the creative journey.
You completed The Artist's Way.
Yeah, definitely. I love, oh yeah. Yes.
What was that? I have that book and I have not completed it. Now I feel convicted.
Yeah, it didn't take me 12 weeks. It was definitely more than 12 weeks, but I completed it, and I think like I want to do it again, because it's just I just think I don't know, it's really interesting being an artist in this world, especially when you know you were made for it, or you knew you were made for it before social media came about, because I think social media really like reconfigured my relationship with myself as an artist. But I'm getting back to the fact that like I was born to do this, and I was going to do it whether social media was here, whether anybody hired me or not. I was going to do this.
How
Right.
can people find you and find your film?
Yes, so we are doing nationwide screenings. If you are interested in screening with us, whether it's virtual, whether it's in person, you can email Diamond, Diamonde at 30wonderproductions.com. It will be online on a platform later this year. We're not sure when, maybe October. We're working with an independent platform, so maybe on there. But we're not sure when. For now, we know that it's really important to watch this documentary in community with Black women, because like my bio says, it's very important for me to build community, and that this screening has been a beautiful way for me to do that as an artist and as a human. So, and you can check out our website, 30wonderproductions.com, to see more of our work.
Thank you, Diamond, so much. Thank you for your work. It is impactful and it is doing exactly what you wanted to do. And I'm happy to have been able to have seen it and to share about it.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for all the places that the art takes me.
Yes. All right. That's it.